Hello, beautiful televiewers of your Pan-African channel and listeners. You're welcome to today's edition of Talking Point. But today we shall be discussing west and the eastern part of the African continent. We shall be kick-starting with this opening topic in Senegal, West Africa, where the president-elect or recently sworn-in president, His Excellency DIOMAYE FAYE, has nominated his key backer, Ousmane Sonko, as the nation's Prime Minister. Is what noted in his first act as leader of the West African nation. President DIOMAYE FAYE has appointed his ally and key backer Ousmane Sonko as the country's new Prime Minister. While the president of the West African country made the announcement shortly after he was sworn into office on Tuesday, pledging systematic change across the West African nation. Speaking after his appointment, Sonko said it would present the Excellency of FAYE with a full list of proposed ministerial appointments for his approval. Sonko reiterated once again that there will be no question of leaving the president alone to assume the heavy responsibilities. Let's recall that FAYE took the presidential oath in the presence of hundreds of officials and several heads of state from West Africa or the African continent and beyond at an exhibition center in the new town of Diamadio near the capital of Dakar. We shall be equally taking you to the eastern part of the African continent to evoke Rwanda, where we shall be talking about the achievements since the 1994 Rwandan genocide. It's worth noting that President Paul Kagame of the East African nation of Rwanda has urged Rwandans to be proud and happy for the achievements registered in the last 30 years since the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsi, citing the need to draw strength from the inspiration and move steadily ahead. The head of state spoke on Monday during a radio interview on local media, and the discussion tackled different topics, including the upcoming 30th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi, as well as the Rwanda's transformational journey over the past 30 years. Rwandans and the Friends of Rwanda will, from April 7, 2024, commence week-long activities to commemorate the planned tragic massacres that claimed more than 1 million lives during a duration of 100 days. This will be our center of focus all through today's edition of Talking Point. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome on board. Stay with us. Hello, Africa and the world. Thank you for joining us on the fresh dose of Talking Point over your #1 Pan-African channel. If you're watching us, you're following us on FAYE Television FM 90 or FAYE Radio FM 96.3. Now, today, as we mentioned in our preamble, we shall be opening today's topic of discussion in Senegal, where we shall be discussing this recent happening where the recently sworn-in president of the West African country has just nominated a prime minister in the person of Ousmane Sonko. So we shall be discussing these on my panel. We shall be welcoming Mr. Prince MUSI NKENG, who is a Pan-Africanist. He shall be joining us subsequently, but already with us here is a KOHTEM PRINCEWIL SAMBIT, who is a youth leader. Greetings to you. You're welcome on board.
Thank you very much, Madam Sharon, for having me on your program. It has always been an honor for me to be on your program, especially at this time where we're talking about very pertinent issues that are affecting Africa. And, you know, with the recent elections in Senegal, it is an eye-opener for the rest of Africa, different African countries, and especially for us, the young people, to be able to copy a lot of examples from that, owing to the fact that young people are were at the forefront of his elections, and he himself as a young person, and these young people will still be at the forefront of the implementations of his agenda, which is not seen as a personal agenda, but more of an agenda of a group of young people who have decided to put their heads together for the development of their country. And you know, Senegal has always had that exemplary democratic institutions or society that has always been an example for other African countries. So as we'll be dissecting this topic, I think we're going to have a lot of better insight to be able to talk about this. And looking at the issue of SONKO being appointed as Prime Minister, I think we'll look at it, and I think it's very timely, and it suits. It's like a spare peg in a spare hole. So we should be looking at all this. Thank you very much for having me.
Now, in a bit to kickstart, what is your general overview of the recent inauguration ceremony that took place in the capital, Dakar, with the transfer of power from the outgoing president or the former president Macky Sall now to DIOMAYE FAYE, and the recent appointment of Ousmane Sonko? Could you say that this was something that was foreseen?
Looking at their history, you remember DIOMAYE FAYE was in prison with SONKO, and SONKO is one of the main brain behind their project. Initially, he was supposed to be the presidential candidate before the constitution or the disposition that were put in place that did not actually qualify him as a candidate at the time which they were released. But fortunately enough, DIOMAYE FAYE was qualified, and he had to be the one that would be the flag bearer of their project. Now, talking about the situation about the handing over and the between the new president DIOMAYE FAYE and Macky Sall, I want to tell you it should be a lesson for other African leaders and young people. I'll look at this in two dimensions. A lesson for young Africans on the one hand, in the sense that these are young people. Remember, the president is 44. SONKO, just senior to him, the whole of his entourage are young people. This sends a strong message to Africa. We're talking about West Africa. Look at the countries bordering West Africa. You have Mali with a very young, Burkina Faso with a very young president. You have Guinea with a very young president or transitional president. Now Senegal. You realize that it is a message to young people in Africa that young people can also take the lead. And like it's often said, that young people are the future of today and tomorrow, not necessarily the future of tomorrow. So this is a very great example for young people. And now there is this aspect of tolerance when we talk about young people, because in other part of the continent, there's how do I put it? There's a lost aspect of patience, tolerance, resilience. How long did SONKO and DIOMAYE FAYE spend in the prison? They were in prison. How many young people in the different African countries will want to follow their dream, and even to the extent of going to prison for that or accepting the prison sentence for that, but still keep dreaming? That is the question. I would not want to avoid citing different African countries. Cameroon, for example. Cameroon has a president for over 41, 42 years now running, that has been in power. What are the young people doing? I want to tell you that I am of that school of thought that believe that the problem is not the government in Cameroon. Permit me cite Cameroon. The problem is not the government in Cameroon, but the problem is the young people who don't want to take the bull by the horn. Senegal, just like Cameroon, had a president who was adamant, who did not want to leave. Remember, Macky Sall wanted to prolong or extend his mandate. But what did the young people do? It is not just the Constitutional Council that came into place, but the young people of Senegal were the first to go to the streets and say that no, it is not constitutional, and we don't want it. This actually pushed the Constitutional Council to be able to uphold or follow the decision or follow the mandate in which they are being put in place. But if you look at the case in Cameroon, is it the same thing? Are the young people complaining? Are the young people willing to take the forefront? It's true that you have some couple of young people who are leading at the forefront, but it doesn't depend on some individuals. It depends on the will of the citizens as a whole, not some particular individual. There are those people who are called the flag bearers, but the citizens in general are the original holders of power. That is why they say the power belongs to the state. And who is the state? The state is the individuals that combine together and make the state. Now, looking at the aspect of the Constitutional Council in Senegal, the Constitutional Council has lived up to its expectation if we have to compare it to Cameroon. But what actually makes the difference between the Constitutional Council in Senegal and that of Cameroon? The Constitutional Council is being put in place. They uphold the mandate for which they are being put in place. But at a point in time, they need to be pushed to follow up their functions. Like it's usually being said, you give somebody power and you need to control the power. That's why Jean-Jacques Rousseau had to talk about separation of power. It might not be the same tie in this situation, but that is what we talk about separation of power. The people are the original holders of the power, and if you delegate your power to somebody, you should be capable of doing the checks and balances of these people you delegate. Is that the position in Cameroon? Of course, we may not want to answer in the affirmative, because rarely you will see these young people want to manifest. We are looking at the presidential election which is coming on in Cameroon in 2025, and you want to look at the number of voters, young people that have registered in the voters registration, voters register. How many is the percent? We're talking about 1,000. I think the last amount that letters that were given of the numbers of registered, I think was 144,000 something. What is 144,000 of a country that we are estimating? Well, permit me, I'm not going by the 20 million Cameroonians, 25 million Cameroonians,
yeah,
because for 18 today, Cameroon has not carried out a census. So we should be talking about 30 million, and 30 million Cameroonians with about 60 to 70% made of young people. And why are these young people not getting registered in the electoral register? That is the problem over there. So we should keep on looking at that. And then the second part which I wanted to look at is the handing over between Macky Sall and DIOMAYE FAYE. Macky Sall, I want to congratulate him for a brilliant handover and the ceremony of handover, because we've seen in so many different countries where to hand over has usually been the problem, but he did a very good ceremony to hand over to this. But this is also a message to other African leaders, because where you are today, don't forget it is not your home. You are just, like the Frenchman would call a locataire, you are just a tenant to the state house, and one day you have to go. DIOMAYE FAYE and SONKO were being imprisoned by him. How could he have imagined that his prisoners will become today his president? That is the contrary about it, that the presidents who are in power today in Africa, not only in Cameroon but other countries. Permit me cite the very old president Obiangema of Guinea Equatorial, Kagame of Rwanda, and so many of them that have been there for long. They need to put this at the back of their mind. It needs to be served as a message for this president who are in power today.
Thank you immensely, PRINCEWIL KOHTEM, for that introduction. Now, like you mentioned, DIOMAYE FAYE is a young leader, and he recently was just sworn in yesterday with regards as the country's fifth president of the West African country. And now, what factors could amplify, because we are looking at a country that will excel? Like we recall, the country is being termed as a model of democracy on the African continent. And now, what factors could amplify his wish to maintain the nation's sovereignty and, of course, subsequently justice across the West African nation?
Yes, that is a very good question. What factor may amplify is to guarantee sovereignty and cohesion? You remember in his inaugural speech, he made mention of key aspects, and one of the key aspects was to be able to give Senegal its total sovereignty. When we talk about total sovereignty, we are looking at economic sovereignty, we are looking at political sovereignty, and also institutional sovereignty. He made mention of the fact that they were going to look into the agreements that were being made, the economic agreements, whether monetary, that were being made before his coming into office. He made mention of the fact that he will also be concentrating on national unity, that's cohesion between the Senegalese people. But one of the most important factors that will amplify his reign is the fact that he has to respond to the youth of the Senegalese youth, because these youths are the people who actually voted him, give him all the assurance and all the powers to be where he is today. And their conditions is not the best, because when you look at majority of the youth do not have the jobs that is required of them. Majority are living below the per capita income that is being required. So he has that that power, that strive to be able to carry on developmental projects. But however, the Senegalese people need to also understand, the youth need to also understand and be patient with him, because these developmental projects are not going, or structural, they are not going to be projects that will be realized today or tomorrow. Remember, he talked about long-term projects. He's going to carry this long-term project, but however, he's going to concentrate with short-term projects that will be able to uplift the living standard of the young people. I think those are going to be his priority. But aside from that, he also wants to look into the sovereignty of Africa. Remember, in his inaugural speech, he talked so much about the unity of Africa as well. And he's been surrounded by other young presidents. You want to look at Niger, you want to look at Burkina Faso, and so on. There are young people who surrounded it, and I remember Colonel General Mamadou Doumbouya was at his inaugural ceremony, and they had a very long talk during at the back doors when after he's swearing in. So this will also be part of his priority. And as a young person, a former tax inspector, he also wants to look at the issue of the currency between his country and France and other West African and Central African states, maybe to be able to look at these other stripes.
Thank you so much. I remember an expert in the course of this program had mentioned that for DIOMAYE FAYE to succeed during his tenure, he would have to focus more on domestic policies and a bit to boost development and growth across the country. Now, looking at justice, like you mentioned, he was released 10 days before the election, and now he is the president, fit president to be precise, of the West African country. And now, since he was liberated before the elections, and like you mentioned, he has what it takes, because he is a young and vibrant leader to rule the country. But then, like an expert had highlighted, the President DIOMAYE FAYE's victory is a victory for the average person of the West African country. With that in mind, how can you ensure, or how would he ensure that he can ensure or fortify the rule of law across his country?
Remember, he and his collaborators have been a victim of the legal system. And so I think that in his inaugural speech, he was very keen about that, to say that you want to strengthen the institutions. And I think that one of the first institutions you want to strengthen is the judicial organ. Remember, during his campaign, he had mentioned a lot. He talked a lot about some magistrates, either at the court, the ordinary court, or the court of exceptions, like the Constitutional Council and the like, who have not lived up to expectation. And throughout, he has been talking about this. So I think that he's going to focus more on this, or he's going to look into this when we talk about the judicial system. He was arbitrarily arrested, just like SONKO, was thrown in jail for issues which jurists hold that did not really actually merit the conditions in which he were being put or incarcerated. So, as a young person, knowing very well that he might have 2 or 3 mandates, 2 mandates to go, pardon me, because the Senegalese constitution does not permit more than that. And he, with his prime minister, SONKO being his prime minister now, and owing to the fact that SONKO also would have been in the place where he is today, who knows, in the future, SONKO might replace him. And in order to ensure all this, you need strong systems. And when we talk about these systems, the first is those systems that guarantee the respect of the Constitution. And that goes in the place of the Constitutional Council. So I think that you will have to look at the judicial system as a whole in order to be able to uphold the values in which he want to lay his foundation on. And it's also to be noted that Like it's often said, ubi jus, ubi societa. There is no society without a law. And in order for you to be able to govern a society, you need good laws. And that is why I think that the judicial system will be one of those key systems that you want to be look at in the early days of his office.
Exactly, you said it all. Now we're going to come into the end of the first, this opening topic on the talking point. And now, what are your closing remarks, given this point you have cited? Because it's worth noting that his rule will not just be one full of challenges, but it shall equally be filled with successes and a host of others. But with all this in mind, and now the country now has a new prime minister, a new era of leadership. What is your closing remark for this opening topic?
Thank you very much. I want to start, close my remarks with congratulating him for appointing SONKO as his prime minister. That is a sign of goodwill, good faith to begin with, equity. Remember, SONKO, where he is today, I still want to say it again, it would have been the place of SONKO. But because it is not a project of one person, it's not a project of somebody, but it's a project of a team to develop the country together. It is a good idea to be able to bring SONKO closer to him. Prime Minister means that he will be the head of the government. He will be the one to pilot the affairs of the executive. So, addressing the judiciary and having one of the strongholds as the head of the government, it will mean that the implementation of their policy will actually face some smooth functioning. It is true that we will wish him the best in the realization of his projects, success in it, but success does not just come with wishes. Success needs hard work, success needs resilience, success needs time, success needs dedication. And I believe as young people that they are, they will be able to live up to their expectations. So I wish him all the best. May God guide him.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, this is Talking Point over your #1 Pan-African channel for you, Media Africa. That was PRINCEWIL KOHTEM, a youth leader joining us all the way here to discuss matters pertaining to the African continent. Like we mentioned in our preamble, away from Senegal, we now focus on Rwanda, where we shall be discussing this recent development where ahead of Kwibuka 30, that is a remembrance of the 1994 Rwandan genocide. President Paul Kagame of the East African nation, beg your pardon, has lauded the achievements made in the past 30 years. Before we get down to discussions, let's welcome this report on for us by Rita Van Berry.
The leadership of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, has commended the remarkable strides made by the country 30 years since the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis. In an interview granted to a local radio station, President Kagame urged Rwandans to draw strength from the inspiration and move and remain optimistic for a brighter future. Kagame discussed a wide range of topical issues pertaining the countries, including impending 30th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsis. He also gave insightful discourse on the country's transformational journey over the past 30 years. While commenting on the strides recorded by Rwanda so far, Kagame said, "Just look at Rwanda today and compare it with the picture of 30 years ago. The achievements are self-explanatory. There was no life, only death spiraling over. There was no infrastructure, literally nothing to start from." In another instance, Kagame noted that Rwandans are now united in their resolve to give themselves dignity after working together in the struggle to make the country a better place. Today, people are united and no one is discriminated against in school, in workplaces. People work freely, and even more so, the country is on the right path. Reports say Rwandans and well-wishers will on April 7 start a week-long activities to mark the planned tragic massacre that claimed over 1 million lives in 100 days. This will be the 30th commemoration of the 1994 genocide. Commenting on the economic milestone, Kagame noted that Rwanda has recorded quick and great growth amounting to $15 billion US, up from only $2 billion in the last 30 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, you listened to that report on for us by Barry with regards to the 1994 Rwandan genocide, and we're discussing the achievement made in the past 30 years since that plague befell the East African nation, and that was reiterated by the President of the Republic of Rwanda. Now, like we mentioned, we are here with PRINCEWIL KOHTEM, who is our expert for today. And now, Prince, you've listened to these reports elaborating on this topic of discussion, but then I'll first like to find out, what do you remember of the 1994 Rwandan genocide? PRINCEWIL, are you with us?
Yes, maybe please you come again. I had a little bit of difficulties.
Okay, so I was asking that you listen to the report done for us by Barry Reid regards to the 1994 Rwandan genocide and all its elaborations. But first and foremost, what do you remember of that massacre that befell the East African nation?
Honestly, the first thing that comes to my mind is the DIOMAYE colline. That was the machine that was put in place to be able to deal with the Tutsi people. And it was a very, very catastrophic incident. I regret, even though it's not almost the same situation in Cameroon, but it's a very lamentable situation what is going on in Cameroon today. We might not want, as per international law, it might not have the characteristics of a genocide, but it is what lamentable. Coming back to Rwanda, like I said before, what I could remember is the DIOMAYE colline. Without DIOMAYE colline, I don't think Rwanda would have faced what it went through, what they went through, and with the sleeping international community, it became very difficult to resolve the problem in Rwanda at that time. But now, as time goes on, we have to move on. We have to move on, even though moving on, we have to think about reparations for the families and the other people who actually lost their lives and the likes. But we have to move on, like before, we have to look at the future. Today, 30 years on, we can see how Rwanda has actually evolved under the rulership of His Excellency Paul Kagame in terms of infrastructural development, in terms of we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about industries, we're talking about roads, we're talking about other types of infrastructures. Rwanda has really gone ahead. Even in terms of education, it has really, really evolved over the period of time, unlike it used to be. It is something to be applauded. It is something to be applauded. But the question now is, what next? What next? 30 years on, President Paul Kagame's impact has not only remained at the level or in Rwanda, it has also influenced other African countries. We can follow his his recent comments and orientations to other African presidents, trying to see how they can move Africa to a more united continent. Looking at how I think Rwanda has more a visa-free to other African countries. I can remember how other people, Africans that were deported from England, and so many of these applauding achievements of him. But like I asked before, what next? Is it going to remain there? Because I think that what makes a leader is someone who is capable of providing a relay, because we are all human beings. Someday we are called upon to go. So when he will be leaving, who will be next? We're talking about democracy, yes. It's true that I'm not one of those proponents of, permit me tack it, democracy and not democracy, because what some of the Europeans expect to get in Africa is democracy and not democracy. Fortunately enough, there are some African countries that are actually practicing democracy in a better way, like Senegal is. But other African countries, regrettably, Cameroon, to cite very well, is practicing democracy, because it does not only mean rotation, but we should be capable of coining. We should be capable of building young people who will be capable of taking over power after we leave to continue the good work that they started. So that is the question I ask at this point. What next? Yes, he was able to see how to end the Rwandan genocide. He was a very big actor during this time. He took over power thereafter, have been able to lead the country to where it is today. But like I asked myself, what next? We have the crisis next door to Rwanda in Congo. What is the rule as a very matured and experienced president in this area? We've seen the number of deaths that is being registered in Goma. What is he playing as an active actor, as an active partner, as an African, to be able to resolve this problem? That is where we should be able to put some question mark aspect to this. But looking at President Paul Kagame achievement as a president for 30 years now, I think is what recommendable, is a laudable initiative, is a laudable achievement for him as a president.
Exactly. Now, when he was speaking during the interview, he said that the achievements are self-explanatory, like you mentioned. Now, contrasting present-day Rwanda with Rwanda 30 years ago, what particular achievements could you applaud?
Like I said before, what particular achievement? I want to tell you, this achievement, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Do proceed, please.
Thank you. Yes. So, like I was saying,
PRINCEWIL?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, so please kindly proceed.
Yes, thank you very much. So like I was saying, the achievements, like how jurists will call it, is termed res ipsa loquito. Achievement at the level of infrastructural development, Rwanda has one of the best roads. Achievement in the terms of infrastructural development, education, Rwanda have one of the best universities, I think one of the best law schools. In terms of industries, I think Rwanda is a leading partner in terms of assemblies, car assembly, mobile cell phone assemblies, and other industrial capacities that we can talk about in Africa. In terms of governance, he has been able to keep the Rwandan people united for 30 years after the trauma and the strategy they went through. So I think, and at the level of Africa, he has been able to unite so many different African countries. He has been able to be to give advices at the level of the African Union, at the level of some other regional blocs. So the achievements are very laudable for him, but we can't go without questioning some of these issues as per what is happening in Congo. What is happening in Congo, we want him, Africans, we want to see him to stand taller than what he is now. But his achievements are very much laudable.
Thank you, Mansli, for that. Now, this African adage says that let know what you cannot do tear you from what you can do. Now, it goes say the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. Now, with that in mind, we've seen this. And we say he has been, he has done a lot of achievements, or made a lot of achievements all through the 30s. But what were some of the shortcomings during his period of leadership, given he's still the incumbent president? What are some of those challenges he has encountered as the Rwanda's president?
Yes, before now, I think that before now, I actually made mention of the fact that he's been there for 30 years, 30 years is not 30 days, it's not 3 months. I think that the holding grip, the grip he has in power in Rwanda for this long period of time, and still thinking of taking another mandate may be a problem. Honestly, it may be a problem because we expect an African society where the agent should be capable of mentoring the young people and overseeing that these young people can take over and continue from where they actually ended. Look at Senegal. We have DIOMAYE FAYE of 44 years. Does it mean that there is no other young person in Kenya, in Rwanda, who is capable of following the same footsteps, of continuing the good work that His Excellency Paul Kagame has carried out up to this point? It is a very big question because we believe that young people also have new innovative ideas that actually fit to the contemporary society that they meet in, which may not, to an extent, be able to be carried out by this, permit me use the word, I don't want to use aging generation, but the outgoing generation. So it is for you to be capable of getting a good leader, like the same African adage goes, that a good father is one who is capable of having a successor. So we should be capable of understanding that for this long period of time, and I want to permit me borrow the wordings of Professor Flo Lumumba, who says a good dancer will only be noticed or will only be seen as a good dancer where he leaves the stage while the applause are still high. Or permit me to reframe it in this other way, to rephrase it. A good dancer knows when to leave the stage. So I think that speaks it all. He should be capable of understanding when he should be capable of leaving the stage, and that should be where the applause are still very high. It should not be where a young person may have to, or other opposition leaders may be capable of trying to push the democratic process in the advancement by maybe reawakening the young people, and the young people start thinking about maybe having a different leader, which may not necessarily end up well, because we've seen in other different African countries. I want to cite Mali. You want to cite Burkina Faso, how their leaders actually left power. It's true that in these countries, they were not actually doing as well as Rwanda is doing today. But no matter how well you are, there is some day where you should be capable of leaving the stage. And that is, I think that is one of the biggest weaknesses that can be ascribed to President Kagame as of now. The second is the crisis hitting Congo. I will still come back to it. It is a very big issue. What is the role of Rwanda? Remember President Tshisekedi, actually he was crying into the international social media. We saw young Congolese going to the African Union, actually asking for their voices to be heard. And that is another institution which I think at the time of President Kagame's rule, he has been able to have some grip on this institution, but I want to accept that he has contributed a lot to where that institution is now, the African Union, but there is more that needed to have been done. That also has a little bit of question mark as to his rulership, his leadership as one of the African presidents and somebody who has also had a grip in the African Union. But to tell you, and as per this analysis, I want to say that his achievement has actually triumphed, or outright his weaknesses. However, we could not go without pointing these weaknesses as per his term of mandate and trying to seek in another mandate, his management of the crisis in Congo, and also his role in the place of the African Union as to where it is today.
Exactly. You earlier on mentioned reparations, but with regards to your points you pinpointed earlier, we shall be coming back to that. Back to reparations. Now, we've seen a lot of countries on the African continent that are reeling from crisis. You cited the Democratic Republic of Congo, and there are a host of others. And now, speaking of the healing process and in relation to what's happening in Rwanda and the remembrance of the 1994 Rwandan genocide, we've seen individuals that have been trialed with regards to their implications during the genocide. With that in mind, do you think the healing process or the recovery process of these is something that is easy or feasible?
I want to tell you, with the case of Rwanda and the genocide, the healing process is something we don't expect it to. 30 years on, I tell you, the memories will still be very fresh in the minds of some people who actually went through those killings, that genocide, that massacre. Some people who were actually held on in consecrated camps. I think some of the documentaries I see out there today for the younger generation to be able to exploit. There are a lot of books written in this light, and we've understood. We could feel the pains some family went through, and there are some people still living today either without some of their limbs, which are as a result of the genocide that was carried out in Rwanda. We've seen families that could never trace where their loved ones were being killed, because there were a lot of concentrated camps, there were a lot of mass killings, there were a lot of extrajudicial killings, and there were a lot of mass graves where people could not even have traces of their family and their loved ones. How do you think those scars could heal so fast? It is still there, but there is some sort of, I want to appreciate the Rwanda justice system, because there are a lot of people who have been able over the period of time to be able to get justice with some of the perpetrators of the genocide or the inciters of the genocide being given right treatment by the court, the decisions of the courts. Some of those who actually take part have been tried and sent to prison. Family members, some of them have been paid reparation in terms of financial indemnities, financial reparations. But this, I really want to say, it will not be enough. Why would I say it will not be enough? Because I want to use it as a deterrent factor to be able to send a signal to other countries that are facing such crises today, with other countries that their citizens who will not want to let go of Cameroon, who will not want to let go of Congo, who will not want to let go of so many of these countries in Africa. Because despite the reparations, it will not be enough to heal the wounds of these family members. Because people should not think that because reparations are being paid, it is enough to be able to perpetrate this outrageous act, this unacceptable act, this act against humanity. No, reparations alone cannot be able to heal these wounds. But we have to caution other states to be able to refrain for such actions in order to be able to have a world which will be called a home for everybody.
Exactly. Like you mentioned, Africa has bled in the past and continues to bleed at the moment, but our decisions will reshape the future. Now, President Paul Kagame, while he was discussing during this interview, did say that the struggles are enormous. And you mentioned that too in your answer, but then he re-emphasized that Rwandans will always have to endeavor to be what they want, not what others want them to be. Now, how could we relate this with the struggles the continent is facing at the moment?
Thank you. That is a very great point. You know, with most actors within the African scene and international scene, with some of them upholding the fact that the aspect or the crisis in Goma, in in the Central Africa, rather, pardon me, I keep using Congo, then Central Africa has been some sort of instigation and is being backed by President Kagame's Rwanda through some multinationals who are actually investing in Rwanda. Those are all allegations. Those are all allegations, and most at times they are instigations from the Western medias to be able to destabilize some of these countries. And we understand the rule of the Western medias in Africa. It is not of the interest of the African people. No, it has never been. It is of the interest of the Western countries. It has been in the interest of the Western multinational companies that have activities across Africa, exploiting natural resources, having petroleum deals with almost zero or minus the price in which it's being sold in the international market. We've seen exploitation of minerals within the African continent with little or no pay, or at a very inhuman backing what is being paid for. So what President Kagame is trying to reiterate or say, because he has been saying this over and over, try to say to the Rwandan people is that you are the real masters of your destiny. You know what is good for you. You know what you have gone through. Because looking at the Rwandan genocide, permit me to go back to it, there was some sort of passive complicity of the international community,
absolutely,
of the Western media. Where were the Western media at the time? The Radio Mille Colline was doing all the broadcasting they were doing, the hate speech and all the likes. Where were the international community, the UN, the African Union and the like, at the time all the Rwanda were being massacred? Those people were quiet. So it is a message President Kagame is passing to the Rwandan people. Remember, don't forget of your past so quickly. Remember, you are the true masters of your destiny. If tomorrow you have another genocide, you'll be the one to feel the pains. If tomorrow you don't have industries that will be able to give employment to young people, you'll be the one to feel the pain or the pinch. If tomorrow you don't have good roads anymore, you don't have good electricity system, you don't have good running water system and all the like, you don't have security, you'll be the one to feel the pains and not the outsider. So it is of you to be able to analyze all these data and understand the decision you are making. And this does not only end at the level of Rwanda. I wish that message passes on to other African countries. I wish that wind blows to other African countries which are being controlled by the Western media. There are a lot of these Western medias out there that propagate a lot, but Africans need to understand that it is not of the interest of Africa. No, remember, there's nothing that is free. Even economists will tell you that there's no free ride. No media will want to spend the money of its funders, of its sponsors, of its country's taxpayers to come and give you something for free. When they are coming, they always have a motive at the background. So you should be capable of knowing how not only the medias or even the multinationals and even the countries, the states. Remember, there are most of these Western states who will tell you that for us to be able to give you aid, for us to be able to come to your assistance, you should be able to follow some of the rules that we'll put to you. Maybe in some African countries, they talked about structural adjustment projects. In other countries, some people will tell you about the LGBT, the lesbian, homosexuality. All that will restrain your regime of marriage. We talked about Senegal without me congratulating again His Excellency DIOMAYE for being a true representative of the African people, the real Bantu people. He did not just have one. He doesn't just have one wife. He has two, and I wish he takes the third one and the fourth one. This is what African people are all about. This is the real African people. Some Westerners will come and tell you, for you us to be able to give you some contracts, for us to be able to give you some of these aids, you know, you need to follow this way of life where a man will have to be transferred or transgender to become a woman transgender to become a man, or a man should be able to have intercourse with a woman having intercourse with a man. No. These are some of those cultures that President Kagame is opening up to the Rwandan people, that you should be capable of reasoning all this, understand where you come from, understand your particularity, because the African people's particularity and is different from the Westerners, from the East. So these are the aspects which the President Kagame is trying, and the message which is trying to send to his people. If these people are telling you about democracy, 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 you should be capable of questioning that democracy. However, despite the fact that democracy is being questioned, I still stand for the fact that the aging and the outgoing generation should be capable of mentoring the young people to be able to follow their trail. It is not staying in power for 100 years that will make you change everything. Everything has a procedure. Change is a procedure, and it is not being done by one person. It's a collective effort. So, but I want to applaud the message of His Excellency President Kagame to the Rwandan people, and I expect that this message should also pass to the rest of the African society.
Exactly, it is a collective effort. Now, staying with you, you now mentioned something. It's always often said that African problems could be solved using African solutions. We have re-echoed that too many times in the course of this edition, but then it's true that every African country has its way of solving its own problems, because first and foremost, this part, the fact that we are one people, we have different cultures, different ideologies, and you can name the rest. With that in mind, with the numerous conflicts and numerous issues that are plaguing the continent, what is, in your opinion, a better way of resolving crisis?
Thank you very much. Like you said, actually, it is true that despite the fact that we are an African continent, we are one people, but however, we have some of our divergent points, our different particularities. I want to borrow the words of the Nigerian Minister of Youth Affairs, where during the African Russian conference that held in Russia, in Sochi, some few weeks back, she made mention of this, and I was very happy about that, where she said, when you want to deal with Africans, don't deal with Africa as one continent. Africa is united, Africa is one people, but we have different problems. Our different problems ranges from our different diversities. Our diversity is what unify us, but we shouldn't forget the fact that we have the diversities. Look at the conflicts within Nigeria, the Biafra problem. In Cameroon, we have the Anglophone problem. In Congo, they have the problem. In Congo, they have their problem. In Goma, and like in Rwanda, they have their problem. In Senegal, they have their own problem. In Mali, they have their own problem. So we have different categories of problems. You have problems that ranges from separation. You have problems that ranges from terrorism. You have problems that ranges from social cohesion. You have problems that ranges from environmental issues. You have problems in lines of yes, environmental issues, like I said before. So there are these different problems that may necessitate collective but divergent different solutions. I think these are the approaches that need to be looked at. This is how we need to look in order to be able to approach these problems. Because if we want to put these problems together, we may at a particular point in time be causing more problems. However, there are some problems that can be tackled and handled collectively. For example, the issues of terrorism. In the Sahel, I think the countries of the Sahel can be able to handle these problems collectively. Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Senegal, all of them are on the same street. They have one of the same problems, maybe the terrorist problem around there. Right up to Chad, they can be able to look into these problems together. Move to Central Africa. We have our own problems. Maybe the internal problems such as that of social cohesion, living together, secessionists. We may want to tackle this even though with our differences, but maybe look for common solutions to be able to handle this problem. Because Nigeria, the Biafra people are asking for a separate government. In Cameroon, the separatist Amazonian movement are asking for a separation. Now, you may realize that a problem, what may cause this problem may be at the level of governance issues. At the level of maybe the problem of the form of the states. In Cameroon, some people have been, some proponents have been proposing that maybe if the form of the state is being looked into, it might resolve this problem of secession, because maybe the key problem is not necessarily secession, but more what actually pushed the people to go to this stage, maybe due to bad government, bad governance, that has plunged the whole the entire country into chaos. You want to look into Nigeria. They have a federal system. In Cameroon, most people are asking for the federal system. But in Nigeria, they have a federal system. Maybe at the level of the federal system is not working as they wanted it to work. So they may want to look at a different type of solution that may be able to adapt to this. So Africans have problems that they can be able to tackle it commonly, and they have problems that they need to tackle it divergently. There is actually this issue that is been coming up, the issue of an African standing army, the issue of a particular currency, the issue of the border issues. That I remember the free trade agreement was already launched to be able to open this issue. But I think the African Union has talked about recently of the African passport, which maybe may go operational during the African Day coming this year, 2024. I think those are issues that they need to look into collectively to be able to bring a better unified African as they talk about, because it's not necessarily about talking about African unity based. It's also a matter of putting in concrete solutions in the ground that will be able to handle these problems.
Exactly. It's all about putting every word into action. Since we're gradually coming to the end of this edition, I would like to find out in just a few words, what is the way forward for Rwanda before we draw down the curtains of today's edition?
Thank you very much. The way for Rwanda, the way forward, Rwanda is already moving forward, and to get it better for their country, I think that there is a need for the Rwandan people to be able to have a clear-cut idea of what they want, of what they went through before, what they're actually going through now, and what they are witnessing or what they are witnessing now, and what they think may be of their interest in the future, rather than waiting for some foreigners to be able to tell them what to do and dictate to them. My advice to President Paul Kagame, His Excellency President Paul Kagame, goes that he has lived up to his expectation. You have been able to push African people to see your value, and for most African presidents to be able to copy from what you've done. But also, it is important for you to be able to mentor someone that will be able to continue the good work that you're doing. But for the Rwandan people, I think that you're stronger than yesterday, and you'll be stronger tomorrow.
Exactly. Rwanda is stronger than yesterday, and it will be stronger tomorrow. Africa indeed will be stronger tomorrow. Thank you, PRINCEWIL KOHTEM, a youth leader, for joining us on today's edition of Talking Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it's on that note that we shall be drawing down the curtains of today's edition. We say thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and stay in company of our numerous programs.